right, well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of DevOps Decrypted. I am not Laura, because it's summer, and wouldn't you know it, lots of people are out. So I'm here today with just our CTO, John Mort, and our special guest, Jennifer Davis, and people all over the place. We have somebody over in Berlin on the We Are Developers Conference and so on. It's a busy summer, but sometimes you gotta lose some people. So today's a little bit of a mini-sode of sorts. So we can talk about, CrowdStrike exploding the internet. We're recording this as the thing is unfolding. Of course, it might be a little bit before the thing gets processed and published. But it's been a day. Like half the internet is down, all these fun things. But that feels like it fits really well with our topics today, with DevX and platform engineering and so on. So Jennifer, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jennifer Davis. You may know me as the author of Effective DevOps or Modern System Administration. You may know me from my work in DevOps days or founding coffee ops, getting people together to talk in small groups and learn from each other. But I'm a Google engineering manager. I work in DevRel, so we work on engineering the developer experience through improved samples, improved tools, improved libraries. And we really care about making this a really great experience. And I'm so glad to be here.
Well, nice. So the internet is exploding. What's up with that?
Right. So the first thing, one of the things I want to say is that there must be someone or a team of people who have maybe instigated this and the things that who must be feeling awful, right? Like this is just I've made some mistakes. I haven't made mistakes that have been this big in the things. I have no idea what that must feel like. But I just want to before I have any of that, there's some humans involved in this it would just be suck to be them and their things. The other thing I want to make sure that we get clear is, this is evolving. We've no inside information. We don't. This is just our hot takes on what we see as this is kind of unfolding. And I have a flight I need to get later on today. So I really hope things are sorted out in a few hours' time. I don't think they will be fixed too soon. Yeah. We'll see.
That's such a great point. So I hug ups to all the folks that are navigating this incident right now, and the layers. There's probably chained events that are happening, and we have no idea the impact. Not to add on to all the folks who are being impacted by this in airports everywhere and frustrated. And then that piles on to all the folks who have to support that. And so all the hug ups, we all make mistakes. And this is just, the world we live in is very complex. Things are interconnected. And this is an intense experience to watch unfold.
And I actually absolutely can see all the connections from this to talking about supply chain management, vulnerability scanning, testing, platform engineering, and all those cool things that we'll talk about in a moment. But first, one thing that really stuck out to me, if the initial reports are right, is that we have half the internet down, exaggerated, because antivirus on Windows machines. Did not see that one coming. That popped wait, what? I thought the internet was running on Linux. And then
There's a decent portion running on Windows Server, and probably the majority of end stations that are around in Windows desktops. It's pretty crazy. And the thing that kind of brings it home is it's the same. You have to use the same techniques that a rootkit would use in order to defend against the likes of a rootkit, and having a software update push directly, effectively into kernel drivers, that just seems super risky as a way of delivering software. But I mean, I'm no kernel developer, but it feels like just hard place to be.
You just raised like a really interesting point, that thinking about this, like, we don't know what's going on. Like, you have no idea. But in terms of like continuous integration and continuous deployment and how this happened in like thinking about planning and upgrading, you generally want to like do a little bit of canary testing and identify like how much, like push a little bit, see the impact, and then go through in tiered steps, like 10%, 20%. And it's really fascinating that this is such a broad hit. It makes me wonder, was there like a critical security vulnerability that had to be patched? And so then they pushed this really fast. But like it opens so many questions. But in general, like in terms of software delivery, we think of the safety and concerns, like how you would push change in a manner that doesn't completely break everything. So you made me think like, oh wait, how was this done?
And maybe this is trickier because, as Jon brought up, there's so much stuff running out there in the world that at first, like, yeah, okay, they should have A/B tested that in like Kubernetes by just rolling out 10% of the pods first. But like, oh wait, airlines, they probably have Windows machines at the gate for the like gate agents, and that's corporate. Oh, so that's rolled into the corporate antivirus, and but how do we test that? Like, it's not a clean one type of deployment. It's like it's everything.
Yeah, I was talking with I had the head of IT about this, and his kind of take was, well, this is what you get when people don't apply software updates quickly enough, is you get software updates being pushed at people, so that you want your antivirus and things to be up to date, right? You want that to be the case, because you want the definitions to be recent. So having a manual step in that process is probably not what you want to get to get current. But this is also not what you want. So there's this balance of keeping current and that. So anyway, it's the internet's a mess today, and there's a lot of people who have a really bad time about it.
So how do we clean this up? Jennifer, what are you working on that you think could be relevant to this? I mentioned like supply chain and IDPs and all this fun stuff.
Yeah, no, this is super fascinating, because to me, like, so what am I working on? First, I'm in DevRel. I made the mistake a few conferences ago, assuming that everyone knows what DevRel is, and I've seen some hot takes. DevRel is not just speaking. It's not marketing, although there's nothing wrong with marketing. Every function in a job, if we do this the DevOps way, is an important, critical place in the organization. There's a reason why it's needed, which is to speak on platform engineering. When we do platform engineering, we think about taking something that's really critical, that may be complex, that you want done in a repeatable fashion, and you give it to a team to actually make it so that can be done in a repeatable fashion. So I know there's these two different thoughts on platform. I'm going to sort of segue over here for a second, that it's Kubernetes or maybe something like Backstage, but I pose that there's a third, and that's not Kubernetes or just a developer, internal facing developer platform, but thinking about the platforms that emerge in every organization, whether we call them a platform or not. And the goal is to engineer those platforms to help people. And so within DevRel, going back to the explanation of what DevRel is the interface between companies and the community at large. Sometimes it's also to the organizations directly, but the idea is you're not just working for the company, you're also working for the community. You take your feedback from the community, bring it back into your organization, say, hey, this is not a great experience. We need to help people understand to do this. People want to solve problems. They don't want just to hear, here's my new thing that we're doing. And so for me, I'm in engineering of DevRel, which means we work on all the things like samples and libraries and tools that help smooth the way, as well as give feedback to our organization. The reason this is so important to me is it should be part of everybody's job. Like everybody has a little piece, but if we care about how our things work, where our place in this society and industry, and how things interconnect, we are an interconnected world where we can't just think about what's happening in my org and what do I care. We have to think about other people, and that's the developer experience. It's more like I recently, I was at Google I/O, sorry, I'm going on a long tangent here, but I was at Google I/O and someone was telling me, and they're fresh in industry and they've been working here for 2 years, and they're like, I set this up, I'm a DevOps person, I set this up and it works great. But you know what's so challenging is when other people, I want them to do what I do and they just don't understand. Why don't they get it? And I'm like, exactly. It's easy to figure it out for yourself. It's hard when we're trying to figure it out for a group or a whole industry or a whole, it's just hard. And so that's where the complexity ends. And that's where DevRel tries to come up with these ideas. And so you marry these two of like, not everybody in the org is going to do DevRel, but you need everyone to understand how to do some DevRel. And that's where platform engineering and developer experience comes together.
I absolutely love that. I really, really love that because of that focus on it's everybody. And it's so lost, especially with like modern cutting edge technology. Like it's in the cloud, like just go sign up for the thing. It's per user seat, pricing and all that. Yeah, it's all this modern stuff. And then you go like, but wait a moment. That's not everybody. Like everybody, there's still poor people that, I walk by the like cashier manager of the supermarket and they're like working in one of those like old like monochrome screens with like a pure text-based interface. And I go, they are not going to get help if we just make a SaaS product that only works in Kubernetes. But I want to reach everybody. And we've been trying to do like, the product development and platform engineering and all that. And there's that weird seductive attraction to, let's just make it SaaS and just Kubernetes system on and stuff. Like, but wait, what about everybody else? I want this thing to work for people that are deploying virtual machines, that are deploying firmware updates. I want it to work for people that are still like writing up physical media and actually selling it and shipping it places, because it's all part of the big picture. I love hearing about that because that's what I keep pushing, and it is so hard to get the message across.
So one of the reasons I got into serverless is I know like cool technology, except now we don't talk about serverless so much, and really. Like, it doesn't matter what the name is. It's just something that's complex that enables and empowers anyone to try something out. And it's low cost at small scale. It's not, you can't say like, well, I can't say, oh, it's cheap, because it's not at large scale, because it's managed systems. It's still compute, but it's serverless as a whole. Like you are empowering anyone who may not have like a job that pays them, industry standards. Like, it's like, here's this much. That's another thing I learned at Google I/O, where someone was sharing some insight about another cloud that they really love they loved, and their experience with learning about it, starting to use it. Then they adopted the language that was that, like that. And then they got really frustrated because their cost of using like serverless went from like pennies, or in some cases free, to this is $90 a month. They could not afford $90 a month to try this out. So everybody, that's the thing that I love about the cloud. cloud enables and empowers us to make it possible for anybody to start using stuff, trying it out, learning about it. Doesn't mean everybody has to, but that they can. And that is what is so exciting to me. And then when I think about developer experiences, I think about how do we do this in a manner that we don't obfuscate the security? Because if somebody designs something, they might not know the concerns they need to care about, and we need to bake the security in. But we can't inherit all people's problems, but we can try to help them make the right choices. And that's the best we can do. And if we try to do it in a meaningful way, that's good.
One thing I was that I mentioned, kind of like how much you upscale, and I think one of the things I find difficult with the platforms is to know how much do you kind of explain under, like, in order for someone to build on your platform, like say it's an internal platform, in order for someone to go building on it, how much do you tell them about the details of the guts about what it is and how it does it, rather than what it is and how they can use it? Because there's a well, yeah, I suppose I'll leave it at that. That is because it was a question, like how far do you go?
That is great. So this is the thing. It's not one thing. And this is what I'm so passionate about with documentation and samples. Too often folks are focused on the one explanation rather than making multiple paths and thinking about the persona and what they're thinking about. And so this is where AI is really, like, the opportunities we have with AI is really fascinating and interesting to me. We're not there yet. Do not want to say we're there. But what I want is for folks to have the opportunity to have all the valid information that's available that can source their set of information they need, and then scoped to the context that they need it when they need it. So in your example, like, how deep do you go? And if you look across different cultures in different areas, research shows people want different things. Some people I do not want to talk to a salesperson. I want this information available to me. I want it in video form. Some cultures, they more want, I don't want video. Do not show me video. I want written information, and I want it specific. So if your user base, when you think about user bases, if your user base is advanced and they already know the topic in their own area, what they want is they want detailed information that is very specific and targeted to their use case. They do not want the first you set up your dev environment, then you do this, then you do that, because that's just a waste of their time. Give me what I want when I need it. Do not make me talk to a salesperson. I will buy this. Then that's another thing, making things available for people to try out before they have to pay for it. If it works, then there's people that, like, and this is why it's like, I think about the empathy of, like, someone because every day there's someone who has never touched this stuff, never understood. Then it's like explaining it. And so we need better taxonomies. It's almost like, it's one part librarian and thinking about what does my audience need, and what sets and organizing and information architecture. And as a human, I can only think about, I can try to be empathetic for other folks, and I can try to organize things in a specific way. We all have different cognitive models of how we think, our mental models, and how we shape things. What connects with one person is not going to connect for another. And so for me, some of the fascinating places we're starting to adventure in is thinking how we can leverage AI to provide this, but then we also run into privacy, and how do we make it so it's possible for individuals to have their own AI that's trained on their stuff that is not going anywhere. And there's some interesting things that are happening with the Chrome team, for example, where they're thinking about how to do this in a browser, and it's right there for you. And so that I don't see a lot of people talking about this kind of stuff either. But thank you for asking that question.
To me, this gets me back to the topic of like internal development platforms. Like, I'm a big fan of Backstage and play around with it. That's one thing we're trying to build a product around and so on. But I also look at the other ones like Humanitech stuff, Project IDX from Google and all that. And I'm almost kind of like, but then AI exploded, and it got me to this point of, before we even kind of like finish working out what an internal development platform is, and whether that supports DevX, DevRel, developer economy is now a term we're banding around internally that I have no idea what it means, but I'm really excited about it. Are we going to end up in a situation where it's almost like, yeah, sure, you have an internal developer portal, it has the insight and all the things, but just ask the AI. You have a little bot that's just trained on all that stuff, so you can help figure out, finding what you want in the format you want, rather than you have to actually write your little portal and all the widgets in all the different flavors, one that does video, one that does text, and all that stuff. But maybe they both can live together in some sort of harmonious hybrid.
That's my point, why I think there's the third tier of platform. And it's like I love the platform engineering maturity model from CNCF. I love the thought behind it. I think it maps beautifully to this idea that in terms of the platform, you're abstracting a particular area of expertise to a team. So in my case, my team, we had this reorg last year. We are charged with enabling and empowering contributors internally to create samples. That just seems easy. Why would that matter? Well, we have to think about samples as a product in itself. So if some samples are maintained and some are not, the users don't care. You can't ship your org chart. I mean, we do all the time, but like, they care. I'm trying to do this thing. Is the information there? This is crap. It's not been looked at in 6 years. Like, it doesn't work. They're immediately making decisions about your product as a whole, your whole platform, based on that bad sample. And if you think about organizations, what's the prioritized thing that we're going to focus on right now? We're going to delay that thing. So you have to think about it as your whole corpus of, here's my samples are the backbone of what I think of. The samples for Google Cloud, for example, are the backbone for future enabling, empowering individual users to train their own models on what they need to solve. So in terms of internally, could we use AI to build stuff? Sure, but you need humans. You need that base set that this is good. And so we are incorporating and evaluating what things can we leverage AI to empower our folks to make samples. Also, we want to empower other people, not just Googlers, to write samples, because we don't know everything. There's no possible way. There's different, the pace of which things are changing in our industry, what things are connecting, different design patterns of how people want to work. Third party from our company, like what people want to integrate. Maybe some people use GitLab versus GitHub. Maybe people use Datadog or Splunk. All these things are interconnected, and we have to be able to work with each other. When people are trying to solve these problems, like honestly, it comes down to the community. And so this is why I wanted to do this podcast, honestly, is because part of it is building and contributing to the community, talking about these concepts, sharing, getting people to talk about it. Because ideally, our platforms are more than one place in time. Our platforms are emerging and they're evolving. And we, as the humans responsible for these platforms, have input into this and how we evolve and change. Not everybody uses Kubernetes. Not everybody's going to need something as broad as Backstage. Where is that middle place where we help people make and build the right things that they need so that their company can accelerate the business value and be part of this? So it's not just here's these few companies doing these things.
So one of the things that just kind of sparked when you were you're talking there as it's like there's a whole load of like empathy of your users and like understanding. He's understanding that to try and build the kind of the sort of community. And I was a little bit like thinking, what like are there a set of things that you would recommend an internal platform engineering team to engage users to get that understanding? Is like, what, do this
Yes.
and what is it?
The very first thing is to get away from your assumptions about this is the right way. And so we do something called friction logging, and we've also called it empathy sessions, where we're taking on the customer's view, and we either will work with people directly, helping them understand, like working with the product teams directly, to understand, so they can understand this is what the experience is when someone's coming and using this. But we also are trying to think, okay, no assumptions about what people do in their roles, but different roles have different skills. So if I want a tech writer, for example, to contribute samples, and I am like, this is what you do, I'm going to give them a different set of information. I'm going to tell them, hey, here's GitHub. We develop our samples in the open, so it's on GitHub. I'm going to give them more guidance, but that's telling them what I need to do is talk to them and ask them the questions. What are you trying to do when you're writing documentation? How do you write the documentation? What helps you? And how do we facilitate you being able to have more productivity? Because that's how you're measured, if you're successful. And so having those listening sessions, talking through the friction, then going back and refactoring the workflow that we're telling people, here's how you do this thing, providing, so that's like number one. Number two is metrics that matter. So using something like Dora, like you start from Dora, figuring out how you're doing, no criticism of the individual engineers doing things or whoever is doing things, and not saying, oh, well, you're not as productive as this, so that is your fault, but looking at it just to be able to measure and not glomming everybody in. So it's like, this team is doing something different. Don't go, oh, well, their productivity is this and their productivity is, so the team is bad. Instead, it's looking across. Then it's like you're helping folks understand how they're being productive, but then you're also able to see how the impact of what you're doing and your specific engineering work, you can see the impact on the changes. So for example, for us, we're measuring how quickly can a sample get deployed to production. What does that mean? How quickly does someone start to write it, submit a pull request, it gets merged into documentation? Because until it's in documentation, it's not necessarily discoverable. When it's days to weeks, ideally, we can drive that number down so we can measure and see our impact. Measuring the quality, overall greenness. How often are we pushing samples too fast? So then we're spending time editing them because there's a problem with them. And so those are the two biggies, is like figuring out your metrics, and Dora is a great starting place. And then friction logging, understanding what your folks are experiencing.
I have a question. It's sort of a big one in my mind, but it may not be. The terms, as usual, there's like DevOps are getting all like mixed up and muddled and so on. So there's like developer experience, which feels like, okay, that's like a general approach to how developing is. You brought up like developer relations and explained it in one way. And then there are all these other things like developer economy and all that. The way you put it, developer relations was like the relations between you and like vendors or something like that. But you're also talking about it as if it's almost like an internal thing. So is it one, both? Is it a hybrid? Or does the boundary not really
It is. The DevRel sits in the boundary between where a company sits in an industry. Small companies may not have a dedicated DevRel resource, but DevRel is how you relate to your partners, your competitors, because your direct competitor, we're still partners, even if we're competitors. Like, everybody uses different things. We don't get to choose what people use. And more broadly, the community as a whole, and not just this set of people. It's DevOps engineers, it's developers, it's data engineers. More and more, like, I think we're up for another round of DevOpsing, because I look at all the folks that are enabled and powered by Python notebooks, for example, and our research scientists. They don't have all these concepts of like CI/CD and like the security concerns. And I'm like talking to folks like, how do we test and ensure that a notebook works? Because you're merging documentation and engineering samples in one document. So what we're talking about today, these words, at the core, DevOps is about knowing sometimes we're using different language and we don't mean the same thing. And we have to establish, to DevOps, to me, is establishing what we're trying to say and communicating, repairing and continually repairing that contract. Going back to something you said, developer experience, I want to be like, there is no precise definition, but often what I see is people going, the developer experience is how I experience it. Yeah, I know what that is. That's not it. I can figure stuff out, and that's my experience. It is the we experience, and that's what's hard. It's not the experience of the developer. And there's not one. It's a developer, and we constantly have to think, this is this set of experiences, this is that experience, and how we're measuring ourselves and our success of reaching those people in those categories. If we try to be everything for everyone, I loved your, like, this is a monochrome and this is a phone. We cannot make everything for, like, we can't try to do one solution that fits everybody. We have to have custom targeted solutions for each of these things. Sorry.
Is it maybe that it should be more like the development experience to like sort of like cover the bigger field in a sense? It's kind of like I see the term IDP, and I see somewhere it means internal developer portal. I go like, that seems so limiting because it's developer, which is a particular role, and it's internal. And I started bandying around terms for the fun of it, and thought, like, what if it's like a development community portal? Because then it's like development.
I like that.
And it's a community, whether it's internal or outside. Like, yeah.
And we like, this is one of the things we talk about a lot. It's like, what should this be called? And in part, it's like the overall ecosystem and how you measure your ecosystem. The platform is the least interesting thing, honestly. It's like, you want to engineer it well, and it's fun and it's interesting, but it's the least interesting thing. It's the relationships, how successful you are, how people feel. Like, are you like, you bring up a great point. If we're saying developer, so many people are like, I'm not a developer. It's one of those words, just like DevOps or operator. Like, I don't know if anybody else has had that feeling, but when someone says operator, I'm just like, ugh. Like, yes, for operating, but also for engineers, sometimes it's okay to be an operator, but so words have power and they have impact. And if you want someone to adopt something, use words that bring people together.
Yep. I feel that so much, and especially in product development, so on, where you can get caught up in developing a product and forget about the content, within which I kind of include people doing things on the platform. You can design a product in a vacuum, but you need to know if people will use it and if there'll be stuff in it. So that's a beautiful conversation.
Exactly. I could go on and on about that. I've heard people say, well, what if we just make it easier to use? So why would we need samples? Or wouldn't we focus our time on feature development, because if we add more to solve all the problem, there's no way to solve all the problems.
I think we would be wonderfully happy if you would join us again at some point in the future on a different topic, right? We can dive a little deeper on, the benefits of AI, or what like product IDX is up to, or maybe the internet will be fixed by then,
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd love to talk a lot more. I would love to about the human elements of the things. I think there's that, people get so excited about the technology and things there, and it seems like sort of like DevRel and platform engineering, that's there, that human connection, like it's in like that relationship with a team. I think is so important. In just generally being successful. Before we wrap up, Jennifer, is there anything else you want to just like leave us with, or anything that you want to kind of close out with?
So, developer experience is a crucial part of how we build and think about what we're building, and we have to care about all of our users. When we think about building platforms, it's the component of collaboration and communication across our organizations. We want to avoid shipping our org chart, and so you need DevRel, regardless of whether you have a team or not, to interface with communities and understand what they're trying to solve. Focus your efforts on those user journeys. Platforms can help you build these kind of communities with externally, so that all of the people within your organization don't have to know everything about how to DevRel or how to build particular components, so that it's in a repeatable way, so you can have a holistic approach when you're talking to your communities and users. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come chat about all of these components, and I would love to come back sometime and go into detail on one or more pieces.
We look forward to it. I have more, of course.
Yeah. Well, really appreciate you joining us and sharing today, Jennifer. It's been a great conversation, and love to hearing your insights. So from Jennifer, Rasmus, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. And remember, you can catch up on all previous episodes on major podcast platforms. Just search for DevOps Decrypted on YouTube as well. We'd also love to hear any feedback you have, so please get in touch on DevOps Decrypted at Adaptavist.com. Like and subscribe, I think, is the thing. So from all of us, we hope you have a great rest of the day. This has been DevOps Decrypted.